All right. Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Team Next Level Quad Pod. I'm Greg, joined by Marilyn, Rich, and James. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Hello.
Hi.
We're so color coordinated today.
We are. We're all wearing red, thanks to James. Anything going on, guys? What's
Wait, can they even see us off this table like cloth, or is it just
No,
one big blob of
we
red?
just
big red
blend
blob.
in. Yeah. We got time. Next time we'll do it like two of us will wear black opposite each other, and two of us will wear red.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are right in the heart of summer here. It is July 10th today, and Marilyn and I went and raced this past weekend. So one of the things that popped up this weekend was the heat. The heat came out of kind of nowhere. We had a really cool June, and then it just has gotten hot, and we dealt with that head on today, this past weekend. And it seems like some of the races that happened, some of the Ironman stuff, also had some big heat issues. So this episode is going to be about how to deal with that, right?
How to beat the heat.
How to beat the heat,
Beat it into submission.
or at least deal with it.
Yes.
So
what was the race you guys did?
we did what was it?
What was it called?
I know the answer.
was
Litchfield
so
Hills.
hot.
Yeah, it was the Litchfield Hills,
Hills, that's it.
triathlon. It was up in kind of the like the northwest corner of Connecticut. So we were out. I can't remember what towns we were outside of.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Kind of real
They've
quiet.
already blocked it out. Just kind of like that dark spot of the memory. They don't want to go back to
So
it.
it was weird. There was
cool.
not a peep out of you guys about the race this
Nope.
weekend. We're like,
Nothing.
It's pretty late right now. We haven't heard anything. And I couldn't check results because you had to make an account. I was like,
Yeah.
forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't willing to do that for you guys.
I was afraid because I know you. I didn't want to say like, "Did you plays? How'd you do?" So I like tried to come up with like a side question, like, what,
You did. You asked me, how'd you do?
Right.
I think. That's pretty
real good side
that's,
question.
It's pretty
Oh,
direct.
so yeah, didn't think of anything good, I guess.
Yeah. So
yeah,
we went
not
in.
so good.
Yeah. I mean, all things considered, I think it was okay. We went into it since Mont Tremblant had been canceled. Marilyn was itching for a race, so we found this one. It was extremely hilly. It was an Olympic distance race, and it kind of mimicked the Tremblant numbers. Like if you moved them out,
it was
23-mile bike versus 56 miles. It was pretty much half the amount of climbing. So
Greg found the mini Tremblant.
Wow.
Oh, he
Pretty
did.
much,
yeah,
So good.
Yeah. It was perfect.
I looked at those race courses and I was like, well, even if I had an age to do this,
yeah. It was a small race. Like the years before, you could see the results, and there was like 120, 150 people in it. And then this year, it blew up towards the last month. And I said to Marilyn, like, I was wondering if people were the same kind of boat as she was, where
Yeah, probably.
Tremblant got canceled. They were looking for something, and this was on their radar because they were how many people ended up signing
Like
up?
200 something.
70.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
Wow.
yeah, it was a huge increase.
He said it almost doubled.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. They didn't even have enough. Like they're mailing out medals and stuff if you didn't get one
Oh, wow.
because they didn't have enough.
Oh, I didn't even think of that as an option.
Yeah. So it was, I mean, we got up there, it was already warm as we're getting ready.
So what were temps like?
I don't-
Race start.
I didn't even look.
Race start, I don't know.
It was hot.
It was hot. The water was pretty warm. What did they say, 73?
that's warm.
So still
Yeah,
wetsuit.
middle
So
70s.
wetsuit, this was a very laid back,
You could even use a buoy.
you could use a buoy if you wanted.
Ooh.
All right.
They said
Yeah.
use a wetsuit if you're, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Like,
No,
Is this
there's
like
no
hippies?
cutoff times, but it's not needed because the fastest people
Yeah.
in this race.
Swim, don't swim, it doesn't matter.
Whatever.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Honor system.
Yep.
Yeah, there were no timing mats.
What?
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
We're
So it
going to
was-
take the time off your watch. So just show us your watch at the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the only timing mat there was at the finish line.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So
It was a very it was a grassroots race, but well put on, well organized. Like check-in was easy and quick. Weird thing, numbers didn't match up. Like my bike number, my bib number, and my chip number were all the same, but yours weren't,
mine
right?
wasn't.
So-
My bike and my bib were the same, but my chip was not. And I asked them, and they were like, "Yeah, it's fine."
It's cool. You're doing a relay of one.
Yeah.
So in the end, it all worked out. But
Oh, they may have run out of like
that's what I was
numbers
thinking.
and had to recycle. Like,
Yeah.
'cause that almost happened to us last year for the PV try. We like didn't order enough numbers, and then we had to use stuff from the next year. But it was sequential still, so it still worked out.
Yeah.
But some of the numbers didn't, by design, like in design and graphics, didn't match.
Yeah.
But we had something to work with. But maybe theirs started
Yeah.
back over again.
Yeah.
And-
Who knows? Yeah.
So it was fine. Gorgeous lake to swim in.
Oh my gosh, the water, it was like so clear.
Yeah, it was the clearest freshwater lake I've been in.
Then Muscle Man.
So nice.
Yes.
Yeah, way.
Wow,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's clear.
You could probably see 15 or 20 feet. And
Wow.
so you saw the bottom slope away. It was nice. You could see the people around you in the water.
You see the people in front
Just
of you.
see people under from last year.
It didn't. The race didn't get hard until
later on.
right after the swim.
Was it a
Okay.
mass start?
Mass start. They had 3 waves. My wave was the big one.
had the
I don't
biggest
know
wave,
how
yeah.
many people
It was a lot.
were in there, but probably over 100.
What were the waves?
So it was everybody, men under 40 were in the first wave, men 40 and over were in the second wave, and then all the women and
Relay.
relays were in the third wave, 3 minutes apart. It was fine. I got a little physical on the swim though.
Oh,
It was-
say more.
Yeah, it was tough to get in the water when you wanted to because they just hadn't been used to this many people. So the race director shook everybody's hand as they walked into the water. It was a nice little touch.
Yeah.
But it was so they
Nice
could,
little touch.
so
Huh?
they could count how many people were going in the water. They had 2 people with those pitch counters, the clickers.
Oh, clickers.
And
Okay.
so counting how many bodies are going in the water to make sure everybody comes out of the water.
But it was so weird because I was in the water waiting for people to come in and I wasn't really paying attention. And all of a sudden they're like, okay, go. And I was like, oh, okay, no warning.
And I had heard them say there's only going to be 3 minutes in between waves as I'm watching this group funnel in to shake
Yeah.
this guy's hand. And I'm like, this is going to be really close. And so I didn't get towards the front of the swim. So I just had to get my way there.
So it started on land as a mass start, not a
No,
water
no, it
in
was
mass.
water. In water.
So he shook your hand. You guys all waded in
into
the water.
waiting
Yeah.
for the start.
And then
But it took a long time for our wave at least to
'Cause they had so many
funnel through that and get in the water in the 3 minutes after the first wave
so
started.
you were waiting, and then somebody said go.
So there's a gun
I
start.
heard a gun.
and
Yeah,
then
it was a gun start.
everyone's
you,
time.
maybe,
That
not
wave,
me.
everyone's time starts
Right.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 2 loop run, 2 loop swim. So 750 out, get out, and then run on the beach for, I don't know, 20, 30 yards.
And can I say
Dive
that's
back.
really hard to
It's
do?
very
Yeah.
difficult.
It's so hard to do because you get out of the water and you're like out of breath and you got to run and then re-get into the water. Now it's really hard.
I've never
First
done
time
it.
doing it and it's really hard.
Yeah.
the
I'd probably fall.
Wyckoff does that for the loop
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
You get up, you feel a little bit discombobulated.
because you're
you know.
used to being
Yeah.
horizontal.
It's the
Then you
same-
got to go
it's the same
vertical. Then
feeling
you got to
get
go to
when you
horizontal.
Get out of the water. You
But
just
you're
have to
also
do it
like
twice.
out of breath and then you got to get back in. I was like, yeah,
Challenge.
a
Yeah.
little bit hard.
All right, so everyone
It's
wants to know
fine, but
what were your swim times?
terrible.
I don't remember, like 25 minutes. Same as pretty close to what Independence was.
What level of effort do you think you put in?
Like 3 or 4 out of 10. Nice and chill.
Yeah, mine was.
Yeah,
Even though you
I knew what was coming. So
Even
it
though
was-
you got physical on it?
yeah, I had to get clean water, and people were all over the place. I didn't like push anybody. I don't want you to but I definitely swam through gaps that didn't exist.
Like
so
you were like,
So you
Fist.
created the
I
gap.
created gaps.
were you doing like fist drill in
No,
the?
I was just swimming in a straight line quickly through people.
All right, so no fisting.
No, no fisting. The first hard thing pops up as soon as you get out of the water. There's
Oh my God.
a 1/4 mile gravel road run
Yeah, I saw that. You
Uphill.
guys.
Uphill.
to
On
transition.
bare feet, like so.
No,
So
we
did you guys
got
bring
shoes,
sneakers?
Yeah,
Yes.
they told us. So we bring sneakers, switch into sneakers with wet, sandy feet, run or shuffle or walk up this hill.
We walked.
Yeah.
Were your blisters all okay?
Yeah, my blisters
Okay,
were
I was gonna
okay.
say that would have been terrible if you still had them.
Yeah, no, they'd healed. The last of the skin peeled off earlier this week.
So now you have new ones to work on.
No,
Yeah.
that was like I didn't pop my blisters, so they healed from underneath.
Oh,
So when
okay.
that layer of skin on the outside came out,
It's kind of satisfying.
Solid.
it was fine. Yeah,
A little potato chip.
yeah.
I know what the outtakes for this episode's going to be.
Yeah. So,
I got to that hill.
Did
and I
you
was
have
like,
a pair of sneakers that were?
I did
Oh, all
have
right.
a pair of sneakers, and
Something like what, Air Jordans or something?
No. Anyway,
What was your swim time?
39 minutes, like so slow.
39?
it was a long swim course.
And it was
1500.
confusing. So I swam my second loop. I swam. I think I went out too far because when you got to the last turn, you had to kind of come back.
Mhm.
And
Did
I
they
did
even
that
have it
wrong.
marked? Like,
Yeah.
were they just like, yeah, just swim out to about there and
No, they did
No,
have
they
it
did.
marked.
They
had
did.
Okay.
boats
Yeah.
out
During the
there. It
announcements,
was-
did they announce? Like sometimes they tell you the course, like pay attention
could see
for
the course.
this.
Yeah,
Everything was in
we
front
were
of you.
right there.
Okay.
Okay, so you knew where you had to turn.
It,
Yeah.
it
back
wasn't
to.
a
But it-
nice
it
a
wasn't a
rectangle.
square
There
or
were
rectangle.
there were three.
They just like drop stuff randomly. They're like, yeah, that looks good.
That's kind of what it was. You had to like turn back, like
Yeah.
backtrack almost.
Like twice.
Was the buoy
Yeah.
moving as you were?
We're painting a really bad picture of this race.
Yeah. Hopefully they're not subscribers to the show. They're going to be like, these guys destroyed
No,
us.
I think it's great publicity.
No press is bad press.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No. Okay. So there were markers. You
there were
figured it
markers.
out. You got out of the water. You
Yeah.
climbed a hill. Belayed
gravel.
the
Belayed
hill
up.
was terrible.
The hill was tough. Yeah.
It was terrible.
You get to T1.
And then you get out of your shoes.
You get out of those shoes.
And you got to change.
And you put on your bike
Wait,
shoes. get
before
off
we
your
go
wetsuit.
any further, though, the race director did say the course is really fast until it's not.
Yeah.
And so, we were like, okay. And he had said it was going to be hard.
Yeah. It was. So you leave T1, little bit of small rollers out of T1. And then the first 12 and a half, 13 miles are blisteringly fast.
Yeah.
Like out of this world fast.
Yeah,
You're
so the-
riding.
Do you remember your T1 times?
It
I
was like
didn't even
it
record
took
one.
me 6 minutes
8 or
to
9
go
minutes
from
'cause
the
you had
water's
to go
edge to
Up that hill.
up
to
that
the bike.
hill, transition, run out of transition,
And that's a
get on the
long run,
mountain line.
too. Out of transition was kind of
Yeah, that's
a little
probably another
longer.
100, 150 yards.
Yeah.
Did you try your flying mount?
No,
it was
'cause
like gravel.
I had to
like
run.
rocks.
Yeah, I made the decision not to because we had to run through part of the parking lot, which was
Yeah.
gravel, and I didn't want to run on
Like
that
the
in
big
socks.
kind of rocks,
Yeah.
not like the small. It was the big rocks.
Yeah, wow.
So
All right.
Okay. All right. So
You're on the bike. You're going 90 miles an hour fast.
And the first part was fast, but there was also a lot of traffic.
yeah,
Until you made that like second, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think it was.
Was it marked?
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
very little people on the course like helping
Yeah.
with turns and stuff,
Right.
but marked.
Okay.
Really, really fast. Like I think
Tour de France fast.
I averaged 25, 26
Pretty
on the
close
first
to Tour
13
de
miles.
France.
ooh,
Yeah. And then like the guy said, it's fast and then until it's not.
And
Then
then
you
it's
hit
like,
And then you all that
elevation.
elevation you lost is coming back in the last like 7 miles.
One loop bike?
One loop bike.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you get the 7 miles. And what's the grade?
Everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
What's the biggest?
Was
that
it like
that
a loop?
last one.
That last little bit was probably
There's this
16
one-
or 17%.
This
How
one,
long was that?
Quarter mile.
So you're just heating up then at this point.
Yeah, I
guys
was
are
really
just
hot.
cooking.
Like there was sweat dripping down. It was probably the first time I told you that I ever was like, if this is any longer, I'm getting off my bike. Like it was that
Wow.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I'm a big guy. I had to do 360 watts up the last climb, and that's 50 RPMs just to keep the pedals
I
turning.
think I was almost 300. I was like
Oh my gosh.
270 or something like that
when
Right.
did you eat or drink?
during the ride.
during
before?
the ride. I stayed
knew
on top
that-
of my fueling strategy.
Yeah.
Even on the hill?
Mhm. That was actually the
right
easier
before
time.
that hill.
Right before.
it.
So it was never like one solid climb. It was, you'd climb a little bit. Like we crossed over a river, climbed a little bit, and had a couple miles of flat.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last like 3 miles were very hard, but it would flatten out. You'd have 2-3% where you could take on some stuff. I tried to preload as much as I could and take on as much
I knew it was coming.
prior to that last 4 miles or so.
So how, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how unbearable is that heat when you guys were just?
On the bike,
Yeah.
I didn't notice the heat really until we started climbing. And then I was like, oh, this is going to be, I didn't feel bad, but I was like, this is going to be a tough run.
Was it
I was
cloudy at
hot.
all, or was it sun
No.
was
No,
sun
sun
was
sunny.
out?
Yeah, I was pretty hot on the bike.
You guys had your aero helmets.
I did take, mine has like, did you take the
Did you
plug
take it
out?
No.
I took the plug out. I don't think it made a difference, but
Okay.
it has like a vent plug. So
I
it's
had
supposed to be a
mine in.
little faster with that in, but
All right. So what were your bike splits?
I don't remember. 111? No.
For 23 miles?
Yeah, I average like 21 No, 19 and change.
I was 116.
And I was like 112, 111 or 112.
What were you guys on Independence?
Like 3 minutes faster.
Okay. Yeah. That's not too much of a difference.
But well, I mean, this had like 300 or 400 feet more climbing and about almost exactly the same distance. And I felt like Independence was a way easier.
It was cooler on Independence too, right?
Yeah.
Temperature
Might
wise?
have been. I don't
Maybe,
know.
but I think it was just Independence like was probably more miles of actually going uphill, but much shallower grades. This one hit you with some steep stuff.
Yeah.
So it was climbing, but it was gradual climbing.
Yeah.
Right.
Did you
Climbing
see
a lot.
anybody get off the bike?
No, but I was by myself for a good part of it. There was like, in the beginning I passed people, and then it was really spread out.
So you like questioned yourself on those climbs?
Yeah, like even I knew I was behind because when I got out of the water, there was like almost everybody was done. So there wasn't a lot of people around. Yeah.
Did you finish at the peak of the mountain, or did you go down into transition?
At the peak. Yeah, that was the highest point, I think, of the ride.
Okay, so the transition, you're back somehow in this mountain. You're back in this gravel transition.
Yeah.
Transferred to the run was faster.
Did you bring socks this time?
Yeah. I put socks on it
The
too.
run was no better.
The run was worse.
Yeah.
If that's possible.
That's where it all fell apart.
Yeah. It was
10K?
It was short, but yeah. It was like
five change.
6.
Yeah.
So now we're like about an hour and a half hour or two.
No, at that point.
Well, she's an
2
hour and 50. He's an hour
and
and
15.
30.
Hour and 16 I was.
Into the
Hour 40.
race.
Oh,
Race
into the
started at
race.
what?
Yeah,
Oh,
about
yeah,
an hour
yeah.
40.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he's an hour 30, 40. You're about close to 2 hours.
Race
with the
started at what,
transition being
7?
long.
7:30.
7:30.
So it's like 9,
So okay.
9 o'clock.
It's starting to heat up.
So yeah, what's the
9:30.
temperature like now at that point of
Mid
the
80s.
Oof.
I was running out of transition for my run, and there's this young girl, and she had like 10 like perfectly lined up little tiny cups of water, and I got to the table. I grabbed like 8 of them. I drank some, threw some over me. I looked at her. I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Was it cold?
No,
Ugh.
their aid stations were a bit lacking.
Oh,
I
like
think.
that one girl was for all 3 aid stations. She was
There
like,
was nobody
only-
at the aid stations.
they set him up.
Self-serve. So everything was like, there was, on a day that hot, they should have had ice.
Yeah.
And there was no ice.
There was no
Everything
ice.
was warm.
The water was like, meh. They had bottles of water there that you can take, but they were warm.
Ugh. We're gonna find out. Cold liquids are key
Yeah.
on a hot day.
Yeah. So that wasn't so great.
All right, so you're starting off. You're coming off hot from the bike. You just climbed. You're overheating. Well, not let's say you're overheating, but you're definitely hot. You get into the run. There's
Did
no
you guys
relief.
bring nutrition
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the run with you and hydration because you knew it was
I
Not
brought
hydration.
Not hydration. I knew there would be water.
Yeah.
Okay. So just nutrition.
Hot water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, what's the run like? Walk us through.
Hilly.
Walk
Really?
us through.
Like right from, almost like right
that's
from the
word,
beginning.
walk you
Walk
through.
us through.
Yeah. yeah.
It
walk.
was a steady uphill for the first bit, and that's when you were like, "This is going to be,
that's
rough."
where it hit
So it
me.
starts
Like
with the
this is
climb.
not gonna. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't even know. Yeah, it was a climb because I didn't realize how much of a climb it was until the very end when you came back on that same little stretch of road,
Yeah.
and I was flying at that point.
Same. I after a quarter mile, I was like, "There's going to be a lot of walking today."
Did you guys look at your heart rate at all during
I was
the
like,
runs? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hit my peak 1 hour. I hit my all-time 1 hour run heart rate at that race.
wow,
The-
wow.
The average me.
Yeah, which is normal. You guys experienced what Rich feels all the
I
time.
maxed out at 188, which is very high for me.
I don't think my heart rate got that high because I kept walking because
I'd be
I
on the
was
ground.
dying.
Yeah,
I'd be on the ground.
Because I had the IT band issue at Eagleman.
Yeah.
I already had in my head I was going to do a pretty conservative run walk. I did 4 minutes on, a minute walk, and I just stuck pretty much to that, except for and that was good because I basically walked. The aid stations were at every mile, so I walked once in between the aid stations and then at the aid stations.
It's nice.
I would massage that a little bit if I could see a hill coming up and I was running. I'm like, I'll run until the bottom of the hill and then I'll walk, at least for that minute on the hill, sometimes a little bit longer. It was a really, really hard course. It was probably 50%, maybe more, with no shade.
I hate that.
All the downhills for the most part came in the first half. So it was just like the guy said, it's fast until it isn't. So it was a really, really challenging course. I saw 2 people fall. Like one girl behind me fell just coming downhill way too fast, out of control, was in a relay. And you just heard the tumble of the bot. Like I heard the foot slide out and then the thump and then the roll.
And you're like, ugh.
I turned around and like, hey, you all right? And she said yes, but just she wasn't bleeding or anything because she got up and ran past me. And then more seriously, at the end, with about a half a mile to go, a guy passed out with heat exhaustion right like 50 yards in front of me.
Wow.
I had seen him kind of stumbling, looked like he was trying to shake out a cramp though. Like he was running every once in a while, like off to the side and like kicking out his leg a little bit. And then the last time he just weaved towards the ditch on the side of the road and then overcorrected to the middle of the road and then just collapsed. Luckily there was like a moving truck pulling into a driveway right there. And the person whose house it was called 911 and they took care of him. But like we pulled him off the road, got poured some water because what I did, I don't know if you did it, but I grabbed one of the bottles at each aid station.
You doused him with hot water?
No, but I mean,
it's better than nothing.
It's better than nothing. At this point, he wasn't sweating. Like it was
not
bad.
good.
Yeah, it was real bad.
Was it humid? Do you remember?
It was a miserable weather day. I said to Marilyn, like even on a cool day, that would have been a brutal race course.
Yeah.
On a hot day, it was really, really bad.
So what was your average run pace?
I was over 10 minutes. It was like 10 and a half, 10:40, something like that.
I was like 9:35. I did similar to him. I walked a little, then I would walk a little at the aid stations, which the aid station was really just a table.
Do you normally do a run, or are you a straight runner?
On the longer races, yeah. On the shorter races, I'll walk the aid stations, but depending how I feel. I didn't plan to walk, but there was no way I could run the whole thing. Yeah, I was dead. And there was no way.
Sounds like a good race.
Tough.
It was,
and people were so fast.
Yeah, there were some
like the
unbelievably
times,
fast times.
They were 30 minutes faster than me.
Do you think they cut the course?
No.
Could you have cut the course?
I don't think so because they were both loops.
The swim, you could have done one lap. Nobody would know.
I guess.
But who knows?
No, I
but
don't think so.
people were fast.
But even if you did 20 minutes or whatever,
and still in the beginning he was like, how many newbies do we have? And like half the field raised their hands.
So maybe the people who are fast are just acclimated to that.
Crazy. A lot of people from Connecticut. So
heat.
I think there's a lot of people that live there. Like there was a woman by us in transition and she was like, I come back every year. I don't know why.
It was tough.
I think you guys have a score to settle though with this race.
No, I'm not going back.
Nope, I have no need to go back.
To me, it sounds like a great way to kick off the summer heat acclimation.
It was a good training
They
day,
created a score for you to settle.
Yeah.
So if you want to settle their score, by all means.
Perhaps I might have to go there, show that course who's the boss.
It was a really good hard training day.
Yeah, it was a good, right. I got a good amount of training out of it.
That's what I didn't expect.
So what were your final times?
I forget what I ended up at, 2:40 something.
For our listeners, Greg never forgets his numbers. So for him to block this race out is extra special.
Like
Same with Marilyn.
You were just over 3, right?
I think.
So then I was like 2:48.
Wow.
Which is...
I have no reference for Olympics.
Well,
I haven't done enough.
I did 2:33 at Independence.
Yeah.
And what were you?
At Independence? I don't know. It's too long ago.
240 something?
Yeah.
245, I think.
So it was, 15 minutes slower. That's about right, I think, for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
So heat definitely a factor.
And it was a much harder course.
And much harder
It
course.
wasn't not even comparable. Yeah.
I'd say mostly heat.
Probably mostly heat.
That probably had a lot to do with it, for sure.
Yeah. And then what was the most important question? What was the post-race meal?
It was really good by chance.
Yeah, we just looked up a place. Actually, we looked up one place.
Are you asking for the race post meal or where they went?
Where they went.
Oh, no.
I'm assuming there was no post-race meal at the place.
I actually, at that point, I couldn't have thought about food.
Yeah.
I was like,
same.
If they didn't have any
water.
ice on the course, I would be sketchy on.
Yeah.
We
I feel like I
changed
saw
a lot.
people eating.
It's like they were
but-
serving sushi or something. I'd freak
Oh
out.
God.
No, we're driving home, found a place, or looked up a place that had really good reviews, pulled in, and they were shut down for the day. So we walked down. There was a bagel shop like 2 or 3 doors down that had some burgers.
I was expecting a bagel, and then they had
The
specials.
specials. The
They're
boom
so
burger.
good.
Yeah,
The Boom Burger.
yeah. It
What was the Boom Burger?
bacon, mozzarella cheese, avocado, and a chipotle mayo.
So good.
Yeah.
Good
Bacon,
fries.
avocado, chipotle mayo.
Mozzarella cheese.
Mozzarella cheese. It was a good burger.
Mm-hmm.
Well done.
You both got that?
Yes.
We did.
Did they have beer there too?
No,
Should have brought your own.
I don't think we were ready to drink.
No.
I
Yeah.
certainly
Gotta
wasn't.
drive back from the race too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was about halfway home. I think it took about halfway for me to actually have some kind of appetite because I
Yeah.
was like still trying to bring my core temperature down and stuff. It was,
Yeah. Your blood was probably all like thick and stuff, like
Yeah.
yeah,
trying to pump through your body.
yeah.
keep you alive.
Based on the bathroom visit at the bagel shop, I was dehydrated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he kept asking me, "Where do you want to eat?" I was like, "I'm still recovering. I don't know."
Is your pee brown right now? Well, that segues perfectly into today's topic. And this happens in a lot, summer races. I mean, the sport is, a lot of it is in the summer,
summer,
right? Like
yeah.
you have to get used to this. Even Muscle Man, we heard a lot of stories of people overheating. It was a hot race. Happens all the time, right? So,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's par for the course for a lot of the.
It's something you
that
just
we
have to
do.
learn to deal with, right?
so how do you, quote unquote, beat the heat? How do you prepare yourselves?
Should we talk about how you get hot?
Yeah.
Yes. There are 3 ways of heat transfer. Again, I've been doing a lot of research. Vast research.
Tell us. Tell us more.
Man, I wrote a lot of stuff here, and I don't even remember writing a lot of this stuff here. So, bear with me. There's 3 modes of heat transfer: conduction, radiation, and convection. For this sport, conduction. Also, what conduction is? You touch something hot, you feel it, and it's hot.
Right.
Hotter it is, the hotter it's going to feel. It's just conducting through. Radiation, it's basically like the sun. It can happen in a vacuum. Doesn't matter. You feel it. If you're sitting next to a campfire, you feel the heat. It's just transferring through waves, radiation. And then convection is heat transfer through a fluid, whether it's liquid, air, some sort of fluid transfer. It's convecting. So
for our purposes, convection is probably the only one we really need to be concerned with, right?
yeah, the main one, because in conduction, the only thing you're really in contact with is your bike.
Right.
So if your bike is hot on the saddle and the handle, I mean, it's really relatively small part of your body position. And even then, once you're sitting on it, it's going to reach equilibrium with your body temperature. So that's not going to affect you. And maybe the asphalt on your shoes, I don't know, negligible.
I think it had to be so hot to feel the heat coming through your shoes.
I've had some of those type of runs that where
Have
you
you?
feel it.
Yeah.
Or on the bike. Remember we did that
Oh.
hard ride, and you could feel it coming off
Yeah.
the pavement.
But that would be like
but that's
convective
still convection
Yeah.
because you're not in direct
Oh,
contact.
true,
with the
'cause you're
paint.
not
But
touching
direct
it. Right,
contact,
right, right.
Well, those barefoot runners, watch out.
Yeah.
I mean, radiative heat transfer is going to be, if the sun's out, then it's going to. But the biggest thing we're going to focus on is convection and how it affects you, because that's going to be your biggest factor. That's what you'll kind of have the most, I guess, control over.
So convection means like that heat is moving. The heat's always going to go to where there's less heat, right? The heat's going to flow from where there's lots of heat to where there's not a lot of heat. So when we're looking at this, that's kind of always the thing is like which direction's that heat going to move and what can we do to move it the fastest, right? Is kind of the big goal.
And when you look at the sport, in the swim, it's not a huge factor. In the water, that's a huge heat sink. So you're just going to normalize with whatever the water temp is. And
Well, hopefully not, because the water's always going to be colder than 98.6.
but like you're not going to hopefully like overheat.
You're not going to overheat. It's
Unless
it's
it's-
possible if you're wearing a suit.
right. I was going to
In
say
a
in a
non-wetsuit.
wetsuit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a wetsuit, you're and that's the reason that I think, I don't know, every organization, Ironman, USAT or whatever, has a cutoff where they say, no, you cannot wear a wetsuit because of that, above, I forget what the number is, 86, 84.
Yeah. Or 85.
It's in that ballpark. You can really hurt yourself overheating.
And the rules are in place so to prevent you from overheating, which is good. It's safety there. On the bike, because we're moving at speed, that wind really helps you control or have effective convective cooling.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing a lot of hills, which you guys felt. And once you're
as soon as
moving
you stop,
slow, then all that heat's going to build up.
You need that airflow over you.
But definitely the biggest factor is going to be on the run because you're not moving at 30 to 45 kilometers per hour where you get the most of at least really good convective heat transfer. I think one of the numbers I saw, and we can go into a little deeper, but on average, like if you're moving at 45 kilometers per hour, like your body is actually very efficient at sweating, evaporating, and eliminating the heat you're actually producing. Like you can reach kind of like that perfect like homeostatic state where you're getting rid of the heat you're creating as long as you're moving at that speed.
Yeah. And I think it's amazing when you put the numbers to it, like how much heat you're actually creating. You have the numbers in here that basically like it's a 4-to-1, whatever power you're putting out, you're creating 4 times as much energy as heat.
Yep.
And that's because we as humans are about 25% efficient in converting energy to forward movement. The rest of it is lost as heat to the environment. And
If only we could capture it, we could power a toaster.
Right.
I mean, basically, so if like you look the numbers that that we use in this example, they said like an average, like if you're doing like a Ironman type effort and you're kind of a higher level, I don't even know, 300 watts on the bike that you're holding at that.
That's like a pro men's power number.
So pro man's power is for 300 watts, they're basically creating 1,200 watts of heat. And that's basically what like a small space heater does in your house. So imagine the amount of heat a space heater is emitting.
Right.
That's what the human body is doing, but you have to get rid of that heat. So imagine if you were to trap that heat in your body. Like if you couldn't get rid of any of that and you were just...
You'd cook.
Yeah. I mean, I think you couldn't last more than, I forget the numbers, but it's less than 10 minutes. Like if you did not release any of that heat you generate, in less than 10 minutes, you would overheat and your body would shut down.
Yeah. And this is why when you look at things like Kona favors a certain type of athlete just because of the heat management. The bigger the person is, the more power they're going to create to go the same speed, and therefore the more heat they're going to create, but they also don't have as much surface area per unit of volume to get rid of that heat. So you're never going to have a big, really powerful person win a hot race. It's always going to lean towards a smaller athlete.
Let me wrap my head around it. So you're bigger, but you have less surface area per unit of what?
Volume.
So
think about we're having these drinks, right? This ice cube we've got is melting really slow. Why is it melting slowly?
It's big.
Because it's big. It's got a lot of volume, a lot of mass, but relatively small surface area, right? So like if I take that cube and I make that cube half as big on every side, it has 6 times the amount of surface area per unit of volume. It's why our cells are tiny. Like we don't have big cells in our body because they can't get enough stuff in through the surface for the unit volume they have. So big bodies don't do good in heat.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, you're gonna have to let me know when I get a little dorky because I'll tell you. This is a
test tomorrow.
Surface area to volume ratio is one of my favorite like scientific things. It's why your fingers get cold first and your nose and your ears. It's why your core stays warm longer. It's why fried chicken wings are absolutely delicious. It's why you're
get in there.
It's why your lungs, like, so if you took your lungs out of your chest and like laid them out so they were perfectly flat, it's half a tennis court worth of surface area.
Wow.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Swear to God.
Really?
Yeah. I couldn't make that shit up.
Wow.
You're one person's lungs.
Your lungs, because they're all these little tiny sacs,
pockets.
the alveoli, right?
Alveoli.
If you took those all out and laid them flat and measured their surface area, it's half a tennis court.
Both lungs or one lung?
Both lungs.
Oh, it's too bad it wasn't one whole tennis court.
But then you think about it, like that's a huge surface area, right? But your tidal volume is only like 4 or 5 liters. So when you take a breath, all that surface area means that oxygen molecules are going to actually touch a surface. If they were just a bag, then most of the air wouldn't be touching anything. So you wouldn't get the transfer you need.
Maybe one pickleball court, right?
Maybe. Yeah.
So basically what it comes down to is how efficiently can you cool the surface of your skin? Because the way we cool down is sweat. That sweat needs to hit the surface of your skin, and that needs to evaporate, and that cools us. Right. So basically, there's basically all these studies and strategies and whatever is like, how do you get more efficient or effective at cooling your body down?
Cooling.
Yeah. So we can go through these factors. What affects heat loss through the skin?
Do we want to go into what happens to our cells and blood and body as we heat up, or no? Or do we do that a little
if
later?
Greg knows that answer.
No.
I'm just trying to see if... No, let's talk about that when we get to heat acclimation and stuff like that.
Fine.
So basically, what are the effects? What affects heat loss through the skin? And so there's basically, what did I write here? You want to have a temperature difference between your skin surface and the outside temperature. So the greater that delta is, then the more efficient your skin is. But on the flip side, I guess it is. If it's 98 degrees out and your skin is 98, you're kind of screwed.
Not super efficient. Right?
Yeah, you're not going to be able to release heat.
Yeah.
Versus if it's
Is that
40
something
degrees.
you can
Humidity,
control?
but it's not just temperature because humidity will affect it.
That's that would be the next factor.
So that's the next factor.
I didn't read ahead.
Rich, with your question, can we do anything about it? That's why pouring water on yourself, cold water, because you're creating almost like a microclimate around your skin to create a bigger delta between cold and your skin.
So if you can't change the temperature around you, then change the temperature of your skin.
Right.
So utilize cold water on the course, ice, whatever it is, just cool down your skin. The interesting thing, I don't know if you heard it in the research that we all did, was like most animals don't sweat.
Right.
They can't.
Yeah, we sweat more than.
So like your dog can't sweat. Most animals, like they pant or whatever, but they did a study. They found kangaroos lick their forearms to cool down because their forearm is where there's a lot of, I guess, blood flow. And they've learned to just lick their forearms, and then the saliva just starts to evaporate, and that's how they cool themselves down.
And I mean, that's the reason like pigs and cat, like they roll in mud, get that water on them, that water evaporates and they cool themselves.
Could try
We
that
should
in a
try
race.
that.
Yeah, roll around some mud. I feel like it'd be natural sunblock too.
Yeah. It's
Little
probably
shell.
a smart idea.
Little shell. You're like a chocolate dipped shell.
That guy just went off the side of the road. Don't worry, he's cooling himself.
Come out and just like eyeballs.
The finisher picks will be great.
Yeah. So definitely taking advantage of if someone, like a lot of courses are people out, volunteers and people just spectators with hoses.
Yeah,
and,
there was a woman with a hose. Did you see her at our race?
No, I must have had
I
tunnel
like
vision.
showered in it.
so take that in.
Yeah.
Use it to your advantage. I always, when I run through the stations, I rarely do I actually even drink the water. I just use it to cool myself down.
Yeah.
I'll drink the Gatorade or whatever's on there as my actual hydration, but water is always just poured on my head, let it drip down, cool down. The next thing is your rate of perspiration. So the more you can sweat and the earlier you can sweat,
The better.
the better it is.
So you're king.
Apparently, I'm built for
You would probably
heat.
do very well in a hot, dry climate
Yeah, like
Yeah.
if I went to Arizona.
if you could replace it fast enough.
Right.
And that's a big, because you only have so much inside you.
Yeah. I've never hit that limit. Oh, I actually hit that limit once. I did hit it once. I stopped sweating. That was not good.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
he told
started
us
feeling
about it.
cold. That was at
He
that
told us.
Spartan race.
Yeah, that's not
I
good.
started feeling cold in like whatever hot day it was, and I stopped
That's
sweating. I was
not
like,
good.
"Oh, that's not good." I didn't know that till afterwards,
Yeah.
but I made it. So the thing is, your rate of perspiration is actually like one of the things that's kind of just built for you. But apparently, you can train it. Like they say, part of heat acclimation, we can get to it later, is when you start to heat acclimate, you start to sweat earlier. As soon as your body detects an increase in temperature,
Right.
it starts turning the sweat on, and then you can increase your sweat rate.
Right.
So train in heat, start sweating more, you start cooling down better.
So the sweat test in terms of your sweat rate, so you can train your sweat rate to be more.
That's
Yes.
what the studies that I looked at
Yeah.
says that it can.
That's one of the big adaptations that comes with heat acclimation.
So for those of you taking the sweat rate test, you can train it.
But that test only tested sodium, no?
Right.
Not how.
It did test our.
Well, that was part of right. It was
was
a
part of
two-part
it.
test.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Your sweat
you
rate.
do need to retest. You shouldn't need to worry too much about the sodium content. That shouldn't change
But
too
your
much.
sweat
But the
rate.
sweat rate will based on the conditions. Yeah.
But they're actually so in that meta-analysis they did, part of the study, they did notice that there were adaptations and
Yeah. You lose less sodium over
Yeah.
time, right? The more adapted you get.
basically, yeah, the more heat trained you get, your body figures out to sweat more, but then hold on to the sodium.
Yep.
Which is interesting.
Yeah. Same protein I think that's associated with cystic fibrosis is the one that like changes a little bit when it comes to that.
Interesting.
People with CF,
They're really good.
no,
adapted.
The other way around.
The other way around.
Oh.
Yeah,
They
create.
can't.
It has to do with the mucous membranes and stuff. The water moves in the wrong direction, so that creates much thicker mucus and stuff. But it's that protein is what kind of changes when you become heat adapted. So one of the things you like the biggest, so you can sweat all you want, but if that sweat doesn't go anywhere, you're losing the biggest kind of benefit of be sweating. Like just producing sweat doesn't really cool you that much. It takes a little bit of heat with it if it drips off of you, but the real energy saving or the real cooling benefit comes from taking that water as a liquid and converting it into a gas in that phase change. That brings huge amounts of energy with it and therefore cools you off.
Yeah, because if it's just pooling on your skin, you're not really cooling off.
Yeah, so relative humidity is a huge factor in being able to cool yourself down. So unfortunately, where we are and a lot of the U.S., at least on the East Coast, is humid summers.
Yeah. So and I mean, we didn't evolve in, as humans, we didn't evolve in a humid heat. Like we evolved in desert, like savanna. And when you look at that, like sweating makes a lot of sense as a cooling mechanism. Cause you hear people go to Vegas and stuff like that and like, oh, it's 120, but it's a dry heat. And it's like, well, they're full of shit. But to some extent that holds true because when it's dry like that, your sweat it comes off of you immediately. You cool off because of it. And it's a more efficient means of cooling.
And just in case we have to explain relative humidity, because I've always heard the term relative humidity, the percentages. I don't know if, Greg, you want to explain it
Nope.
or I can explain it?
You can explain it.
It's basically just the percentage of how much how much water it can accept. And if
Okay.
it's like 80% humid, it's 80% saturated. Like it can there's only 20% left before it will just
right.
rain or it's just water at that
Yeah.
point. So if you have high relative humidity, whatever you're sweating is not going to get evaporated because the air is already too moist.
Right. Sounds good.
Yeah.
So what do you do if it's super humid? I mean, so you can't control that.
Right.
And I was wondering, like, if you carried a towel or chamois with you and you were just wiping the sweat off of you.
No, because you need it to change from a liquid to a gas. That's where the kind of magic happens.
So yeah, I don't know how you
know
fight
what the
humidity
answer is.
because like Kona is humid.
Right.
A lot of ice to cool your skin.
Right.
I think that's the only thing.
You're
Create
not
less volume of yourself.
be smaller.
Yeah.
So that's if you're racing in Arizona, like Ironman Arizona, you're going to get very dry air.
Right.
So you'll do better there. So that's the only, you can choose a different race
Choose
venue.
your races, yeah.
Choose to go to climates that are slightly cooler. Or the next point is, well, then you're going to have to cool yourself from within.
Yeah.
Because your core temperature is going to affect you a lot too.
Right. And ultimately that's what it's about, right? Is keeping your core temperature in a range that's allowing for you to perform. So anything you can, all of these things are just about keeping that core temperature down. So
Let me back up for a second. We'll fix this in post because this is a pretty cool point. Because basically they were saying with convective cooling, if you had no temperature gradient, but you had, let's say, you're training in a greenhouse, but let's say you had 45 kilometer per hour wind,
yeah.
you can extend your rate of exhaustion from like whatever was like 30 seconds to like 10 minutes
Because
Okay.
of the wind.
because of the wind.
Because
Just
of that
the,
convective cooling.
just that wind cooling your body. But now if you have like a 20-degree, at least like a 20-degree gradient and that wind, now you extend that time to exhaustion to 2 hours.
Okay.
Which is now where the world we live in with endurance. Like you need that. So it's really getting that gradient and moving air or evaporation to get the most effective cooling.
Okay.
But just one or the other
Doesn't work.
is not enough.
You need both.
Otherwise, you're either going from 10 minutes or you're extending out to like 11 minutes.
Right.
But there's no real like huge
it's
jump.
not the huge jump that you need from
you need
having
both. Yeah.
Okay. So we got some numbers here. Core temperature, just a 2-degree difference. Your body starts to take protective measures, which it doesn't seem like very much,
No.
right?
I know. It's like
You go from 98.6 to over 100, and you're in bad shape
Yeah,
already.
your body's going to start shutting down. And then on the flip side too, like if you go from 98 down to like 96,
You're in
like
trouble
you're
too.
starting to get
Right.
like
Right.
hypothermia.
Hypothermic.
Yeah. So our body like operates in a very
Very narrow
range.
Yeah.
So hypothermia is too cold, and then hyperthermia
Mm-hmm.
is too hot, and that's we normally deal with hyperthermia.
Yeah.
So just getting that a 1 degree drop is actually huge.
Yeah.
And you had talked about that before with cooling your core with cold drinks, slushies, things like that.
Right. So there's a bunch of things you can do, right, to kind of to reduce those core temps.
Yeah. So there's basically 2 strategies: pre-cooling and mid-race cooling.
Pre-cooling though, I don't get, because even if you wear the ice vest that some people wear, like pros and stuff, how long does that really last? I mean,
I'm glad you
Once
asked.
you get going,
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked.
I always wonder that. Can you answer it?
25 minutes.
Really?
25 minutes is
Longer
about
than
what
I
you-
expected.
Yeah. But in our world, it's kind of useless
Yeah, probably.
because
Right.
you're going into the swim.
Oh yeah, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Like this, a lot of this was geared towards cyclists and runners.
Okay.
So it's nice to stave
like
off the
Still,
heat.
25 minutes is a long time.
Yeah. I mean,
think
like
it'd be that long.
pre-cooling for a 5 or a 10K, like that could be a
that's the whole-
huge difference.
For a
maker.
5K, that's your whole race.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
I got to experiment with that.
Yeah.
for sure.
Ice bath to run.
You guys keep talking because I'm going to grab something real quick.
Okay.
An ice bath.
I mean, an ice bath's hard to do because you're not gonna like jump out of a.
Right.
But the ice vest, if it lasts that long for a short race, could be
Yeah. I
worth
mean,
it.
when that seems like a thing for at least pro cyclists and stuff. You see them wearing that ice vest to work on the cooling side of things. I mean, I guess if the race is close to home and you can take a cold shower before you start, like for sure.
After you've warmed up, run home,
Yeah.
take a shower, run back.
Yeah. I wonder if the pre-cooling gets in the way of warm-ups and stuff like that, or you're really worried about your core, which is like those aren't the muscles you're really trying to warm
Yeah.
up. So
But I saw those ice vests on the Tour de France, all these guys
Yeah.
wearing. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, literally.
literally.
Yeah.
I would like to get one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure you can find them. They're just like those. They're like little pockets of that blue gel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like imagine if we had that before that 5K we did,
Yeah. I wish.
Yeah.
because we weren't heat adapted at all for that. I think that's why we struggled a bit. At
I'm
least
still
I
not
did.
heat adapted.
You probably got
I'm
some,
at
though.
50%.
Are you? I'm only
Yeah.
at 14%.
And you probably got like 45% of that just from.
I was already a little high because I did 2 runs on like really hot days.
Yeah.
Like those, and that got me a lot.
Oh, that's why probably your performance didn't
My performance
decline
was
as bad as it could have. Oh, and that's another thing. What was I think it's. I can't remember. It's like 10% drop in performance or something like that on average from the heat, perhaps. I forget what it was.
But it's got to depend. Like
Like on average
Yeah.
or something. But heat is definitely 100% affects you. And then they
Yeah.
measured it. I forget. I think they did some study on. They took the top marathon, 300 fastest marathon times on every race over however many, and they saw the times and they measured the difference, and they saw that definitely change because of heat.
Okay.
So part of the pre-race, and you could even do this mid-race, which I think is interesting because we touched upon this on another episode,
We did.
was
Yeah.
the internal cooling of a slushy drink.
Yeah.
So what I got was these, I don't know if you can see on this camera,
do you
but
shake them or
you freeze these. It's a instant, or not instant, but it's a slushy maker.
Right.
So my
see that.
thought was,
If there's no 7-Eleven nearby,
I mean, it makes sense. Do you ever have like ice cream or something and then you're cold after?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been using the
wanna
Power
try
Bar ISO Active
We're all gonna try it. That's what I'm looking at.
as like my nutrition on the bike and my hydration because it's got carbs and electrolytes in it.
Yeah, it's
Pretty
a
decent amount.
Good mix. It's got their C2, so it's maltodextrin or glucose, maltodextrin, and fructose in like a 2-to-1. You get per serving 380 milligrams of sodium and 30 grams of carbs.
How much is one serving?
1.5 scoops.
Oh yeah, we talked about
Yeah,
this.
and there's something like 40 something servings in that tub.
Yep.
So I love the flavor. It's like a pomegranate,
Right. This is the only flavor of this they have. Right. A raspberry pomegranate.
raspberry pomegranate. It's a perfect balance of like sweet and a little bit sour to it. So
Yeah.
it goes down real easy. So I thought, what better way to, it's like a dual thing. You get your fuel and your electrolytes,
Sure.
but you can cool yourself.
Yeah.
All right. So let's
slushy it up.
slushy it up.
Let's get slushy.
The instructions say it works best if you use
The cap
a
off. I'll be faster.
if you use you cool your drink first. So you want the drink cold,
Okay.
and then you freeze these things.
And this is like a silicone sleeve with some.
Did you
built-in-
cool your
So
drink
you,
first?
You got to start squeezing it. Yeah. So the drink is
It's not on camera.
the drink is pre-cooled. It works.
It's like
I
the
tried it with
shake weight.
I
I
tried it with this room temperature tap water, and it didn't work well.
Yeah.
So the drink you put in it has to be cold.
So the drink should be cold, and then you freeze these things. And we'll put a link in the show notes. We'll have our a link to Amazon on where
Yeah.
you can get these.
Yeah. I mean, it's a smart. So when we were talking about like the reason evaporative cooling is important.
Do you want to squeeze it?
I do not.
So,
Mine's like,
so you
mine's
just
coming out.
is it
That's what
not
happens
tight?
when you squeeze it that much, Rich.
It's like milking a cow.
Yeah, you just pump this thing up.
Is this what I would do in transition for a few minutes?
yeah.
So that's going to be the challenge. Oh, it's leaking.
It's leaking. I'm telling you.
No,
I'm telling you, that's
you
what
gotta
happens
hold
when you
this-
squeeze it that much.
Oh.
Maybe we'll
Hold-
find a
hold-
better
hold
brand
this
to.
white- these white tabs and then tighten the. Sorry, it's user error.
Yeah. So when
right.
you
Looks
this
tight
is
to
this is
me.
going back to when evaporative cooling is important as you go from liquid to gas. The same thing happens when you go. Don't do it over this mixer.
Don't do it over here.
When you go from solid to liquid, that change
It's
absorbs.
just leaking out.
Mine's okay.
All right.
Yeah. So I have a
Over
feeling
here.
these are not going to be slushy.
No.
It's so watery. I think it got more watery.
I mean, I could see some of it forming.
I
Yeah.
tested this out with my daughter's mango
Did you
drink.
put too
and it
much
worked.
in there?
I did put more here right now.
That's
started with a
probably-
little
I
bit.
think you have too much.
No, but it says it takes a couple minutes. So
Oh my gosh. We can't fill a couple minutes worth of airtime here.
With laughter.
Watching you.
It's a little weird.
It looks like a
go
fleshlight
everywhere.
playing with.
Oh, it's turning into a slushy.
Is it?
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's leaking everywhere, but whatever.
The excitement in Rich's voice is phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
I love
Someone's gonna-
chemistry.
yeah.
Someone's going to be doing their PT workout over there
I
tomorrow.
gotta-
They're going to be like,
you have to
why is
pump
the
it-
floor so sticky?
Smells so good.
you have to pump it fast.
No comment.
Yeah, mine is.
You have to
now
pump
mine
it
is-
just right.
Yeah.
You have to know where to pump
Rich,
it.
don't get weird.
Too late.
Oh, I think I feel some slush.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
Well, you guys
happening.
keep doing that.
We're gonna wrap up. Come back next week.
So ideally, you'd want to use this right pre-race. You could very easily do this pre-race, right? You
I don't know about that.
Well, I mean,
I'm not
if
doing
you-
this
if you had
pre-race.
some-
And then what? It
Kind of-
stays as a slushy further. No, you
no,
get,
no.
You
No,
get
so
a,
so
you
my-
drink this pre-race. You know,
As one tool.
right?
My other thinking though now is like, look, I brought this to my race.
Yeah, if
Last
it'll
time.
stay, then you could put it in there.
Mm-hmm.
I
Do it
fill this thing
beforehand.
up with ice.
I'm watching. Yeah, I see, dude.
Because I
Good
think
job.
the
Keep
biggest
pumping
thing
away.
is, can you have this somehow stay this cold till you hit T2? If this thing is loaded with
maybe.
ice,
I feel like if you buy a good cooler, you should be able to.
Oh, it's leaking.
I mean, if you had a one of those Yeti
Yeah.
coolers,
Yeah.
100% it would probably be
Or
able
you
to do
put
it.
you can't leave it in that cup. You put it in one of those.
Right.
7-Eleven cups.
It's slush.
No.
It's slush now.
Okay.
It works.
Yeah, it works.
100%.
You guys have made a mess of everything around you.
Shh.
But,
Where it is leaking from though.
The sides.
Yeah,
You
it's
see
coming
pork
up.
coming out.
It's evaporating the coolant.
I like the little thing on top.
Yeah.
Well, it actually comes with a spoon and a straw as well, so you can drink it straight out of here.
Okay.
So where am I pouring this into my alcohol?
Well, into these these plastic cups I have here.
No, my alcohol.
You could do that too.
So, I mean, we're not going to wait till a full slushy because we only have so many. But this is basically a power bar.
Oh God, it's leaking everywhere. That is not
That is
slush.
not slushy.
That is not slush at all.
There was some slush on the top,
And I could rehydrate after that thing.
but at least you get to taste the flavor.
Mine is
Oh,
slushy.
it's good. Mine's not.
Oh yeah, yeah. Greg's came out really good. Rich, maybe give some of your.
It's fine. It's good.
So we just have to figure out.
James, is this mixed up at the normal
I
1.5 scoops?
I did 4
Oh, yeah.
scoops in
Oh,
this.
so this is strong.
That's 4 scoops.
I mean, this is. I mean, I don't know how
So that's like almost 100, like
I don't know how
80
much
grams of
water
carbs.
they want you to put that in, but
Oh no, you said 1.5.
It's two. It's like 2.5, 2 2.3 servings.
Mine's kind of slushy.
Yeah, mine's slushy. 2 times 30. Yeah, this is like 75 or 80 grams of carbs. Like that's probably a strong bottle. I was gonna say the flavor for me right
I would
like
add one more.
one more scoop.
Yeah, to make it 100 per bottle.
Yeah, but that's a
But that's
lot.
100
For an
what,
hour?
grams.
I love
Why
this
is it
flavor.
a lot?
This is a good flavor.
That's a strong. Like I don't want that much flavoring
Oh yeah.
in my drink.
Oh, you don't?
If I'm gonna be like that's my only bottle on a bike,
Yeah, that would be a lot.
But
that
as
would be
as a
Cool.
slushy, I would want as much flavor as possible.
as a slushy. It's good, man. Like I think you want more slush. I don't think it's gonna work again.
I got 0 slush. This is as liquidy as it could be.
All right, that's user error because I did it.
I got chunks. Look at how much.
I didn't get that.
You know what it was? I
Could you just throw it
think
over your
the
shoulder?
Oh, I ate it.
I think the way to do it is don't fill it to the brim,
Yeah.
about 3/4. That way you're not going to get spillage either,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
and then you can really aggressively pump it. But I did it with a mango juice,
Yeah,
and
and
it
it
was
came out good.
completely
That's awesome.
slush this afternoon.
I mean, you could just if you're doing this ahead of time, you could just put it in a blender, right? And
Yeah.
That's
Some
true.
ice.
Yeah,
with
blend
some
up the
ice.
ice.
Yeah,
But this would be kind of cool. These are not too expensive, so like if you had to take this in transition and
I
you
am not doing that in the middle of a race.
So imagine you got this in your little cooler bag in transition. You got your C2 isoactive mix ready to go. You come out of transition. It's got the straw, and you just start pumping. You run, you pump, run, and pump. Right?
and then what do you do with that when you're done?
Yeah.
You just toss it in the garbage can. They're not that expensive.
I don't know. That
There's a lot
seems-
more expensive things in
think that's-
triathlon.
I'm thinking I'm making a slushy at 7-Eleven,
and
putting
you
it in
put
a cooler, and
you
having
put
it.
in one
I
of
agree.
these.
Like maybe you just stop at 7-Eleven on the way to the race, right?
But they're not going to have
You
this.
can
No,
make
you can
it.
mix
You
this
can
in.
make it.
Oh.
Yeah, you can make it.
Put it into your slushy.
You can pre-make it and put it.
So there's a lot of options. But so the idea is cool from the inside. You get that ice that melts in your gut,
Yes.
pulls heat out of you, and cools you off.
So if you don't have the luxury of a slushy during a race, take the ice on the course.
Yes.
If they have ice on the course, take the ice. Don't, number one, yes, put it in your hat, put it in your kit, cool your outside surface temperature as much as possible. They also find spots on your body that, if you can, I don't have this problem, but that's not sweating, put ice on that area. Because you want that cold water to evaporate on that part of your body so that part of your body cools.
So there's 3 parts of your body that don't sweat.
Really, what are they?
The palms of your hands, soles of your feet, and your face from the nose up. Those are special type of tissue called gabrous tissue. And it's, you know what?
Wait, my forehead doesn't
Yeah, I
sweat.
was just gonna
Okay.
say. You read my
I was
mind.
going to say, my face.
I know.
Okay, so I got this slightly wrong. Those areas, so everywhere else, these are like the radiators of heat. Those capillaries don't constrict the same way that like other capillaries will constrict. So if you want to get rid of heat, those are the 3 areas that are most effective at cooling you off. So like forehead and upper part of your face, palms, and soles of your feet. That's why like holding on to ice or something cool it would help out a lot. I love putting ice in my hat and then letting that water drain.
That feels so good.
So good. You can't really do anything about the soles of your feet, but yeah.
Apparently there's, I forget some triathlete, they had custom pockets sewn into their kits. Our new kits that are coming
have those.
And I've told you guys before, putting it down your pants.
Yep. The person that I got a lot of information from said he stuffs his kit with ice and then eventually migrates down to a certain area.
Yep.
Right.
But that's actually a very effective area to cool that cools your whole body. It's like it's going to be very uncomfortable, but it'll cool your whole body.
I somehow managed to like try to get under the arms too, and was running.
Yeah.
Oh, it felt so good.
I think that was one of the best things I did for Eagle Man was I was eating the ice in my hat, and then ice in my kit.
Yeah.
And holding ice. I mean, I did every single thing I could think of other than putting ice in my shoes.
I don't know if it's at every race, but also if you're out there and they're giving you like a cup of water and it's warm, try to put ice in it because then also it affects if you're taking in cold water.
Okay.
Yeah, I poured it down front, down the back, pants.
They even talked about if you can like have a sponge and then have that somehow like pack ice or cold water and then put that behind you on your neck. That'll help cool you as well.
So let's back up to the cooling yourself with the water that you were just talking about. And you were talking about the bike and you said, on the bike, you're going to get cooled off by the airflow, correct? Yes. So is it still as effective to pour water on yourself on the bike or not?
I think you're going to supercharge that.
You're going to supercharge it. Sure.
You're getting the temperature gradient now on your skin and the ambient temperature because now you've put cold water, and then you're getting the airflow.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Last weekend, I was wishing they had aid stations on the bike because I could have used
I could have used
water,
some of that.
like to pour on myself.
So one thing you can do if you have like the luxury, if you have like an extra bottle cage, freeze the bottle for the bike. And then hopefully over time on the bike, it starts to melt and then you just have ice cold.
I thought
liquid.
of that after. I was like, if I would have really thought this through, I would have put one in my back cage to have
The ice didn't last long. So I did that. I had a water bottle up front and I squeezed it on myself, but the ice was gone within 10
But what
minutes.
if you kept like a cooler bag or a small cooler at transition? Just remember, grab that, call it a cold bottle out of that bag. Like just make it part of your.
We filled everything. Yeah, we didn't.
Maybe
we weren't thinking.
Maybe it would have stayed, but I mean, it melted. It was. I don't think there's any ice in that bottle by the time within 25 minutes of me.
It was still hot in full sun.
But I think it's just maybe like a new thing to think about when you're preparing your transition area is bring a small cooler, pack it with ice, put some bottles in there, in hopes of by the time you hit T1 and T2, you have some ice cold liquids.
What pro cyclists will do, and you'll see this in the tour if you watch it. You'll see these like lumps on their back.
Yeah, I saw.
So what they do is they take women's pantyhose and they pack it with ice, and then they just shove that into their jersey, the back of their jersey.
You were very specific with the women's pantyhose.
Is there men's
pantyhose?
But why those?
Why pantyhose?
Yeah.
Because it holds onto the ice, but the water leaks out of it. And then as the water leaks,
rather have that than a wet sock.
Right. What else are you going to use? It's like a perfect.
I saw that. I thought it was like their mic battery pack or something.
Well,
Some of them are.
If it's a little square, it's that. But if you see like a thing right on their up their neck, and so that way you can like just keep putting those in there. Easy to carry. But to your idea, that would be a great idea.
Ooh, put that in your cooler.
Right in T1 or T2. Because then it's not what happened with me at. Anytime we've had ice is I throw it down my suit, but then it just moves around, it migrates or whatever. If you keep it up top, it'll stay put and just melt, and that cold water will drip down your back.
And once actually we get our new kits, we can see the size of there's a neck pocket.
Yeah.
We could see like how big of a pantyhose thing we can make and then just go right in there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, on those hot days, that's ice is going to be your best friend when it's real hot.
So I think at least one pack just cooler of ice and then just have that ice ready to stuff your kit with at transition. And then if you can do a slushy drink or a cold drink, have some bottles there. My fear was always if I don't see it, I might not grab it out of transition. But if we just plan and make that part of your routine, it's like, oh, I got to open up my cooler, grab my cold bottle. That's going to help you a lot. Because even if you, like I said, if you get that 1 degree cooling to start off that hot run, it's going to pay dividends.
Ironman 2024.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Wilmington 23.
Also.
Right.
It's going to do it.
I think
it'll
that's a
be
good
October,
idea.
hopefully.
Yeah, but I mean, who knows what the weather could be that day.
True.
Hopefully you'll be heat adapted, and that kind of leads us into like, how do you change your physiology to help you deal with the heat. Because right now we've just talked about how to cope with it, right? We haven't talked about changing or adapting, training for it.
So that's a key thing. And the good news is it doesn't take a lot of time to do it.
No, I was amazed at how quickly your body changes to deal with that.
Your body's pretty adaptive.
Yeah.
It only takes basically 1 to 2 weeks to really get most of the heat adaptation that you need. There was a meta study. I think there was over 92 studies that Dr. Steve Chung reviewed and his team, where they got all this data from. And I think there was over 900 participants in it. You could top me off. There's over, or if you need it, if there was over 900 participants in it, but only 8% of it was female. So they're trying to recruit more women for these studies. But in that number, men and women are equally affected by heat. So that's pretty normal. But what they found was 1 to 2 weeks statistically gave at least moderate or significant changes to heat adaptation, which is good news.
So you can go heat adapt for 2 weeks, but do you unadapt
How quickly
too?
do you unadapt?
They didn't. They did talk about how quickly you lose it, but you do hold on to it for a significant amount of time.
It's the same thing.
I just didn't know how long that time period was, because they did do a study with some what do you call them? Norwegian? They're Denmarkians. Scandinavians. It was pretty cool because they had a whole control set of a group of all equal levels of cyclists, like pro cyclists, and they kept some in Denmark. They went through a protocol, and then they took these others to Qatar, and they showed that like as soon as that first day they did a ride, a certain power, certain distance, and they were like 15% off from what their normal times were in Denmark for the same ride and same effort.
Yeah.
Within a week, though, they showed like huge improvement. Like they gained back another. They could never get quite back to 100%, but they got up to like 85 to 95% of where they were. Like, so you're always going to get impairment from heat, but you can adapt some of it back. I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, I got 50% with only a few days of really hot workouts.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I was nowhere, and now I'm at like 57%.
yeah.
I'm so jealous of you guys. I think the most I've ever heat adapted when my watch was working was like 10%.
You have to have had more in summer.
No.
But apparently, maybe I have been heat adapting because there's I guess so. Let's go back to 1 to 2 weeks. You see huge benefits. There's not a lot of studies. So short-term heat adaptation is considered 1 week. Mid what do I call it? Midterm adaptation is 2 weeks, and then long-term is 3 weeks plus. The problem is it's very hard to do a long-term test in a lab study or controlled environment to keep someone at that level of heat for that long. So most of the stuff is happening in 1 to 2 weeks, but that's where they saw a lot of benefits. The interesting thing, though, is they saw a lot of physiological change in people in that 1 to 2 weeks. So basically what was happening, and when you heat acclimate, for that same effort of power or intensity, they saw people's heart rates get lower for that same level. So if a certain effort, let's say you're going 200 watts on a bike for an hour and your heart rate goes up to like 165 because of the heat, then they were able to see that heart rate go down after they were heat adapted.
Right. It's part of the adaptation.
Other things they saw, people's sweat rate increased. So now their bodies are realizing, oh, we're in a hot climate, start sweating more. So then their cooling mechanism increased.
They hold on to their electrolytes.
Yeah. So their sweat, in addition to that, they saw that the salt content of their sweat started to decrease. So the body knew cool down more, let out more water, but hold on to your salt because you need that. They saw you were able to maintain a lower core temperature. So when you start training the heat, your body learns that instead of your core increasing, now it's able to kind of modulate or control that so that you're not increasing as much and you're able to sustain a lower core temp. Anyone else want to go through the rest of the list, or should I keep going?
No, you're so good. And you're not even monotone. So everybody's like on the edge of their feet,
And
on the
then
edge of their chair.
they notice
Oh my
that
gosh.
even the surface of their skin temperature was noticed to be measured lower when you were heat adapted.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So like your body is amazing.
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah,
just
it
learns
really
the
is.
environment and then just becomes efficient.
Right.
So what happens inside on a cellular level?
I have no idea.
Well, so the biggest change is going to be increased plasma volume. So you're going to retain water, and that's because water has a higher what's called specific heat than any other substance on the planet. Means the amount of energy it takes to change 1 gram of a substance 1 degree. Water absorbs tons of energy and doesn't result in a change in temperature.
Is that the same as heat capacity?
Yeah, so water has the highest heat capacity of anything else. It takes 4.18 joules or kilocalories, whatever. It takes a huge, and that's why a pot of water takes so long to boil, right? You put a pan on the stove and it heats up really quick, but the pot of water takes forever because that water takes so much time. So the more water that you are, the more you can resist change, even though you're producing the same amount of heat.
And what are we? 70% water?
Sure.
And
Something
I
like
believe,
that.
I don't know, they say 8% that women and men were the same, but I believe women have less blood plasma than men
Yeah, that wouldn't
think so.
surprise me.
because we have more body fat,
Yeah.
is what I've read.
Okay.
Yeah. So if
That's why they want to increase this study.
So, and then that's why women can overheat a little bit quicker.
makes sense.
And we also are not, we don't sweat as efficiently. We don't sweat as much.
Wow. So basically everything Dr. Steve Chung said was wrong.
I mean, there's all different studies, but that's what I read.
So yeah, there's definitely physiological adaptations that you make.
Mm-hmm.
But the interesting part was the mental adaptations you make.
Yeah, I mean, working out when it's hot
It's
sucks.
hard. It's really
miserable,
hard.
right?
Yeah.
You always have like working out and exerting yourself is already difficult, and now you add one more thing to the like difficult level, and it like you have to overcome that.
Yeah. So there was a study, I think it was by the military. I could be completely wrong. I could be making this entirely up.
You
But I think
shouldn't ever say that.
I know.
we'll edit that out.
delete
Just
that.
go with it.
But I think they were doing some study because it was wearing like chemical warfare suits and stuff, and they wanted to measure, if you were fit and you trained in heat, would you be better like prepared for the heat?
Yeah.
And so they did, these military people and then like regular people. And so what they saw was when they were exposed to heat, they saw the same physiological responses to the heat. Like they could see where it was, but their perceived effort to the heat for the people who were like fit and trained in heat was much lower. Like they didn't think it was as bad,
Right.
even though they were exposed to the same physiological stressors.
Yeah.
Whereas the people who were untrained, they thought it was much more difficult to do whatever exertion, that same effort in the heat because they just were not used to it. So they felt much more fatigued. They wanted to give up more, even though they were both being exposed to the same stimulus.
That makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Like
Yeah.
when I can't remember who I was listening to. I think it was, you guys know who Cameron Worf is? Cameron Worf.
Mm-hmm.
He's an interesting story. He's Tasmanian. He went to the Olympics for crew rowing, and then he switched over to pro cycling. Quit pro cycling and became a triathlete. He's one of the Uber bikers in triathlon. Now he does both. He went back to pro cycling part-time and triathlon. But he said one of the things that was like a switch for him that went off was he thought he was going hard. He thought he was pushing himself. And then he's like, and then I watched these guys run past me and they looked like absolute shit. They looked like they were dying because they were comfortable pushing themselves to that level. And that's kind of goes with this, like I feel that heat and I'm like, oh, this is gross. I'm done. Like I can't do this. Where maybe if I trained more in the heat, I'd be able to be like, this is just normal. Like just have to deal with this. Like you just get better at it. And that's, part of endurance sport is just pushing yourself to a spot that a normal average person isn't comfortable pushing themselves to. And whether that's exertional level or heat stress or whatever, it's all kind of part of the same thing and probably stimulates or causes changes in the same part of the brain to just say like, screw it, I'm doing it.
You get used to it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, I
get
really-
used to that feeling.
I really think like the body will go where the mind tells it to go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like in all aspects of training. Like if you're terrible at hills and you never do hills, when you hit a hill, it's going to feel impossible. But if you do hills all the time, your mind is used, like it knows what what to expect. It knows it's going to be difficult. And so the next time you hit a hill, it's like you're ready and your body will comply. So the same thing when we talked about visualizing the race, like when me and Rich were talking a lot about like logistically what happens, you were talking about going through the feelings and how it's going to feel during the race. I think like when you prepare your mind for the difficult parts of the race, like you'll be able to handle that part of the race.
I didn't prepare my mind for the heat this
You
weekend.
just read my mind. Like he kept saying like, it's going to be a hard race. And I kind of was like, I went into it like, it's going to be a hard training day. I have no expectations. So I was like, yeah, all right. Never thinking it was going to be as hard as it was. So when I got to the run and I was like, oh, wow, this is really hard.
You were caught off guard.
Yeah, I
Just
was
say,
I
"Man,
was just like,
Greg was right.
This is gonna be a hard
If we
race.
could all say that more often, that'd be good.
So I
And
think-
Greg was right.
With heat, like if you train in heat and you feel miserable and you go through all those mental struggles and you've gone through it, the next time you hit a hot race, you're much more prepared.
There's a guy I see in town running, and most of the time he's pushing a jogging stroller, but he's
I think he passes by here too.
he's ripped, right?
Yeah,
Shirtless,
yeah.
looks like he's in great shape, but dude runs in the middle of the day, all like summertime, whatever, just dripping sweat. And I'm like, oh, why would you do that? But if
He's
you're
probably
used to it
ready
and he's
for-
ready,
he's ready.
it's just the way it is.
So Greg, what is the why is blood plasma this magical heat adaptation thing? Or is it the water thing?
It's the water
water.
thing. Yeah. Yeah. Plasma is the liquid part of blood.
So what else can we do to increase blood plasma other than heat adaptation?
Salt. So
Okay.
if you increase salt content, salt and water kind of go together, right? So wherever salt is, water will go. Wherever water is, salt will go. Like it's just kind of the way that osmosis and stuff works.
So is that why making sure you're taking enough electrolytes helps with dealing with heat?
having enough. If you increase the salt concentration in your cells, then water will go in trying to reach that homeostatic point.
Okay.
So you'll balance it out and with more water. So you'll kind of swell up. And
So we make ourselves more water.
Mhm.
So I guess would drinking more water also increase your blood plasma?
as long as you can retain it. Yeah.
So salt helps you
Not
retain
just
the water.
Exactly.
plain
All right.
water though, or
Oh well,
should we
no,
have-
it has to have the sodium
not just
with it,
plain water.
right? Because plain water you'll probably end up just peeing out.
So going into a hot race, prepare like hydrate and
Right. That's why
electrolytes.
Hydrate the
Precision
day before.
Hydration talks about doing like a hyperhydration. Scratch has their hyperhydration mix with the idea you take in this big bolus of salt, and the water that you then drink will follow it, and you'll kind of swell up your cells a little bit.
So what other non-exposing yourselves to heat ways are there to increase blood plasma that you know of? Rich.
I think he said it, like that homeostasis of electrolytes to water. You're just bringing up. So you do pre-race, during race, post-race, taking in hydration.
I just want to know, like, are there any hacks? No Russian hacks?
I don't think so.
No.
Okay, so it's training heat, hydrate properly.
Mm-hmm.
But there was an interesting thing on how to accelerate heat adaptation.
Okay.
But
And what's that? I mean, there are
Yeah, like you
heat
go into
adaptation
saunas
protocols,
and all that.
right? If you don't
Yeah.
live in a hot place and you're trying to train for a hot race, there's ways. Hacks are. I don't know if hack's the right word, but you can train in heat. The problem with training in heat, though, is it affects performance.
Number A here. We got it.
Number A.
how many drinks did you have?
Not
Letter
enough.
A. Letter A.
So let's go with
That I've
boring,
never
boring
heard.
B.
Where did you pull this from?
Dr. Steve Chung.
Really?
But so point B is more vanilla. Let's just go with that.
Okay.
You do a key training session, and then afterwards you extend it out with basically your heat adaptation. So bundle up. So if you're in a temperate climate or cold climate, and let's say you have a 1 hour trainer ride or something, you do that. Then you just put on layers of clothes, and then you kind of just spin out steady state
Yeah.
for another 30 minutes, bundled up, turn off your fans,
Right.
and your body will start acclimating
sounds
faster.
terrible.
Yeah, and that's where it becomes very difficult. Is like you don't want to affect value of the actual training you're doing, right? Like if you've got these key sessions, you need to be able to hit those numbers. You need to be able to hit those paces or powers or whatever. If you're too hot, you can't do that. So like James is saying, one of the ways to do it is to do it immediately after exercise. So you go, do a hard swim and get in the sauna, or get in the hot tub is a good way to do it. And apparently you have to be like up to your neck. There's, for whatever reason, I don't know the physiology behind it. Like you can't just like, you need to be as submerged as you can, whether it's a hot tub or even just a warm bath.
Maybe it has to do with your heart because
It might. I don't know. It maybe has to do with like the nerves and where the nerves that come off your spinal cord. I don't know. I could just making shit up.
You don't say that.
I know.
You just keep talking.
Is it the valgus nerves, the
vagus
same
nerve?
one? Vagus nerves?
Yeah, it might be.
Maybe
I don't have a
it's
degree
100%
in-
that.
Yeah. But yeah, so saunas immediately post exercise, hot tub immediately post exercise, and apparently you're not supposed to take in water during those. Like you don't want to drink when you're in the sauna or when you're in the hot tub. You just have to kind of create this uncomfortableness in those places.
I've even read like after you do exercise and whatever, and you go into the sauna after, that actually increases your cardiovascular endurance too. So they're not just
Really?
you're not even just getting heat benefits. You're actually
Just sitting
getting
there.
more cardio.
So heat adaptation, all the things that we're talking about with changing in heat adaptation make you fitter, period. It also makes you better at dealing with the heat, but just more blood plasma flowing through your body is a better thing, period. So yeah, those are going to help you even in a cold race, even though it's not has nothing to do with cooling.
Yep.
Yeah.
So now the more controversial thing, and they're starting to do studies on it, is dehydration training. So you do these hot efforts, heat adaptation, and then you don't drink anything during that time.
That was always the thing when
terrible.
I was growing up as a kid.
Yeah.
But
But
it-
not on
Water.
purpose. They just didn't know any
So
better.
you do have to,
Or maybe they were onto something. I don't know.
I don't know.
you do have to make sure you hydrate afterwards.
Okay.
Like don't stay dehydrated. But if you don't take in any liquids during these hot runs, you will heat adapt faster
I'll have a headache
from
for
these
like 2
initial
days.
studies.
But
I
do I
agree.
need to heat adapt faster? If I have enough time to heat adapt, do I need to do it faster or can I just heat adapt?
Yeah.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that.
If I have a month to heat adapt, just
Right.
saying,
Then there's no point.
just
in
heat
doing that.
adapt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the slower you can do it, the kind of safer you can be with it, and the
Yeah,
less it's
everything I've read say do heat adaptation slowly. Nobody says
right.
go dehydrate yourself, go do a hard session, go put on a coat, and then go sit in a sauna.
Well, I just had to throw in the thing
Dr.
like
Chung, I disagree with some. That's his name, Dr. Chung?
Dr. Chung. Well, I mean, like the same thing when we're talking about increasing your FTP and dehydrate, drink alcohol, eat red meat.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if you're like you have to cram for a test and you only have like 24 hours, like
Yeah.
this is a technique you can use. Like
Okay.
We do not advise that you cram for a test.
I don't like the dehydration.
Yeah, that's the same thing. Like I don't like depletion runs and stuff like
Yeah.
not fueling your exercise and stuff with the idea of increasing fat metabolism. Like I think there's better ways to do it. To me, I mean, I'd have to look into the literature a little bit better, but like the idea of dehydrating yourself on purpose just doesn't seem smart.
But one of the things they noticed that as athletes got more heat adapted, their thirst desire, I don't know what the word is,
No, I think that's the right word.
decreased. They didn't
Yeah.
feel the need to drink, which then becomes dangerous because you actually
Right, 'cause
still
then
need the
you need
fluid.
that.
So like you have to make sure you have a regimented hydration like strategy because as you get better in the heat, you're not going to get as thirsty anymore. So
interesting.
another kind of physiological change in your body.
Yeah.
So that's why it's good to use your watch and have an alert or something.
Right.
Say take
Yeah.
in fluids, nutrition, and whatnot.
And I mean, up to now, everything we've been talking about has kind of been like the scientific literature. There are definitely limits to what they're allowed to do in that kind of stuff. And, you know, you're always dealing usually with young, fit males, and you don't get a good cross section of the population and stuff. So, James, there's some anecdotal stuff out there, right, that looks at long-term studies, things that look more at kind of real world examples of this where we might be able to pull some information from.
Yeah, so there was a coach who works with a lot of athletes who train for the Badwater Ultra, which happens in Death Valley, and it's 100?
In the summertime.
Yeah. So it's like 100 plus whatever.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
know.
it's 135.
And this
Is
is where
this
they have those
temperature?
ice baths on the side of the road,
Uh-huh.
and this is
I
Famous
think
race.
it's either just happened.
This is like a 100-mile race or something.
135.
135 miles
Yeah.
in this
my
heat.
God.
Ultra.
They showed a video of the lead group. They did. They were on the road in the middle of the night running, and they ran their first marathon or what? Like the first 26 miles was like a 3:31, and they were just like, these guys are cooking.
Animals.
And so it's all along Death Valley, but then I think at the end it just climbs up to the top of some massive mountain.
Don't you have to apply to be in that race?
Oh yeah, and it's a
then
Yeah, you
really
can't
small
just
field.
join.
Yeah, it's a really small
Selective.
field. You have to
Yeah.
prove like that was the point in Goggins' book, right?
Yeah.
Was all the hoops he had to jump through to get into that
Yeah.
race.
And I think like your feet actually burn. Like
Right, that's where
From how hot
you're going to
the
get some
ground is?
conductive.
conductive heating.
Yeah, from
Yeah,
your
we
shoe
have some
soles.
serious
like you
conduction.
can. I think they show videos from that race where like you crack an egg on the pavement there, it fries.
Yeah,
That's how hot it gets.
yeah.
So this coach is preparing athletes for this race, and they do 6 weeks plus of heat adaptation to get ready for that race.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they found was at 6 weeks plus, they basically like reset their like comfortable level of like heat tolerance. Like they were actually like if we're sitting in this room now, like room temperature, they would be shivering.
It would be cold.
They'd be shivering because there's
Yeah.
now like they reset that they're more comfortable at a higher
Hotter.
temperature, and that's for them is okay. So like they would be completely bundled up right now because they'd almost be going hypothermic because they've heat adapted so much their body is more comfortable in heat than it is at room temperature.
This is like my grandmother who used to set the thermostat to like 82 degrees in the summertime.
And
so
wear
she didn't
sweaters,
have,
walking the
she didn't have
dog
a high
outside.
I mean,
electric bill.
maybe there's hope for us that when we're senior citizens, if we continue our cardiovascular fitness, like we will be heat adapted. Like we'll be in the middle of summer in a sweater
Yeah.
running a race.
That's one of my goals.
And it's kind of crazy on here. You have they sweat less. I'm assuming that's like at rest. But then as soon as they probably start to exercise, their sweat
Because usually
glands
you
just-
sweat more, the fitter you are.
Right.
I don't remember now when I wrote this. I think it may have been during the efforts they were sweating less
Oh,
because
really?
they're just more comfortable in the like they don't
In
need
heat,
the
they don't
cooling.
need- their body's doing other things to
Yeah.
deal with it.
They're not like their body's not perceiving as much like their core temperature is probably not rising as
Yeah.
much. So then it's not sending the sweat signal
Right.
because they've
Okay.
adapted so much to the heat.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was pretty interesting to see that that basically these athletes who basically like gone beyond what the science has measured, like
Yeah.
the
And
human
because
body.
those are
can do
things
it.
that like those might not get approved by a ethics review board if you tried to say like here's what we're gonna do and they're like,
we're gonna keep you in like 130 degrees.
like sorry no we're not
Yeah.
doing that. So okay.
So there was a couple key points I forgot to mention, and a lot of people think, oh, like this is maybe important for elite athletes who want to perform their best, but in actuality, this is very important to like just normal age groupers, especially even people who are slower, because they're the ones who are going to get affected the most because they're going to spend the most amount of time
On the course.
on the course. They're going to be on the course when it's later and hotter. Like the elites, like a elite marathoner is out there for 2 hours.
Right.
They're like
It's a different ball game.
Yeah.
It's a completely different like
they don't have to deal with as much of the stressors because they're just so fit, so fast. They outrun the heat.
yeah.
But then the people who are going to be out there 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, they're going to get affected the most. So you need to use these strategies.
Yeah.
Like this is not just for elite athletes. This is actually for just everyday people.
Right.
Second caveat, the cooling of your body internally, you can overdo it.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you can, like-
hyponatremia. Is that what it's called?
So that's a
that what you
salt
mean?
thing.
Oh.
This one is actually, so if you cool, there's receptors in your stomach that if you cool it too much, it'll trick your mind to say, oh, your body's cold. You don't need to sweat. You don't need to do anything. So then that could set you up for a really bad time that you're in a hot race. Your receptors think you're cold.
Right.
So it no longer sets the sweat response. And now you're actually going to
Huh.
overheat.
And
I'm in
that
no
happens
danger, though.
how?
If you there's probably a fine, not I don't want to say fine line, but there's probably a good ratio of how much cold liquid you should take in. Or let's say you consume like handfuls of ice while you're running, it might be too much.
Right. I forget what I was looking into, but the same idea with like holding ice or covering your body in it is you create this climate and your skin, your thermoreceptors in your skin are like, whoa, cold. Let's shut off blood flow to the skin, which is driving perspiration and driving cooling and evaporative, all that stuff that gets water to your skin. If you keep the blood from going to your skin, you're in a bad spot.
That's not good.
So you don't want to overdo it.
You don't want to overdo it.
You probably want to practice this before a race when you're doing your heat adaptation training.
Yeah.
Don't find your limit, but just make sure you're like in training, you do a certain amount and you're comfortable with it.
Right.
Because too much of a good thing is bad.
That's tough though, because like when you think about it, when we go out and train, I don't have ice.
Yeah.
I don't have ice available to me every mile. Like
where are those cups? Where are those cups?
the slushy cup.
Just running around with slushy cups.
I thought about trying to searching cooler fanny pack or something. Like maybe there's stuff that's out there.
But I don't know how it's not that easy to overdo it in a race.
Right.
Yeah, I just don't.
You don't have that much access to ice.
Yeah. I felt Eagle Man had a lot of ice.
Yeah, but it's every mile. You put it in and 2 seconds later it melted and you have another, I don't know what. If you're running faster, 8 minutes, I don't know.
Right. Yeah,
I don't know if it's that. I don't know if you can overdo it.
I just wanted to cover our liability.
Yeah. No, I hear it. I agree, but I like in a typical race.
Yeah, I think it's more like an ultra marathon, and you're kind of going for 130 miles.
Where you got a support crew.
Yeah, where you got
Feeding you
people
stuff,
there
maybe.
all the time. Yeah.
You got to watch that balance.
Yeah, it might be difficult to consume the amount of cold or slushy
needed to
make it to the point where
Yeah.
your receptors tell your body stop sweating, but it may not. Maybe
you just look up at the sun and be like, "See, start sweating."
Yeah.
Start sweating.
I guess the thing is, it's self-regulated to some degree. Like if it's a super hot race, it's gonna be hard to overcome that, and it's gonna feel like no matter how much you cool your body, it's not gonna be enough.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a cold day and you're, not to say cold, but temperate day, and you're super cooling your body and you're not getting any sweat, then you might run into some problems.
All right, so we talked about a lot of stuff. What are some of our take-home messages here? What should we really focus on?
I think the thing is train in heat.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely
whenever
acclimate.
you can. Even if you have a run and you have time later in the day, it's a good idea when you can to run later.
I am going to say you should prioritize if you do have that option.
Mm-hmm.
Those runs should be easy.
Yeah.
Or bikes, whatever it is, they should be easy because you're piling stress
Takes a
on
lot out of
stress,
you.
right? So if it's an easy run and you do it in the heat, great. Make it a little bit easier. Don't try and do your key run session in the heat if you have that option.
I did it, but
one time's not going to hurt. But if you do your track runs, do them when they're cool, if possible, because then you're going to get the most out of your body. You're going to give the biggest stimulus for adaptation, with the aerobic adaptations. And then get that heat adaptation somewhere else. Because if you try and do those hard key sessions, either you're not going to do them or you're going to create so much damage that it's going to be so hard to recover from. So I think it's important to train in the heat, but I think they should be mostly easy, almost entirely if possible.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say gradually acclimate to heat.
Yeah.
Don't do anything drastic.
And we feel that
take
around
time.
here, right? Sometimes we get those, it's springtime and it's gorgeous weather, and then boom, you get that 90-degree week, and I feel like garbage when I try and train in that because you haven't slowly adapted to it.
Also, you should dress appropriately. For the heat, if you're going out in heat, make sure you're wearing lighter clothing. And
wear moisture wicking material.
Moisture wicking material. Maybe things that you could put ice thing in if you're racing, so that you're appropriately prepared for that heat.
Stay on top of your hydration, right? Yep. Make sure that you're hydrated properly before, during, and after. You don't want.
And that's key. After is key. Don't forget the after.
But I think a lot of people forget the before.
And before.
I think
the day before I did a lot of hydrating before I raced the day before.
So make sure you have a solid electrolyte mix, like the IsoActive here.
Right.
That's going to pay dividends, like we talked about. It's going to help you retain the water. It's going to increase your blood plasma. You need those electrolytes to make all these things function. So make sure you're hydrating before and during and after your runs. Use the cooling strategies. So if you can get water on you, cold water, cold liquids down, slushy, ice.
Yeah.
Use all those things to mitigate your core temperature from rising. That's going to pay huge dividends.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
Yeah,
you got to
go
pay attention to what your body's telling you.
Yeah.
You got, if you're out there in the heat and your body's telling you something's wrong,
Slow
you
your
got to
pace
know
down.
that fine line between something's wrong and
Right.
I can push through this.
You do need to be willing to stop. I
Mhm.
think that's like when I watched that guy fall in front of me, like he knew what was
He
like
probably should have
From
stopped
heat exhaustion
before
and the race
falling.
that you were doing
Yeah.
this weekend.
2 miles ago, he knew
Yeah.
something wasn't right. He should have stopped there.
It's not worth it.
Right. There's nothing on a race course worth dying for.
Yeah.
He should have stopped long before. By the time he got to where he collapsed, he wasn't in his right faculties to
Make the decision.
make that
to stop.
decision. That decision needed to be made miles prior.
And way before your race, practice so that you're able to drink and eat while you're riding your bike, while you're
Yeah.
running, because you need it.
It was very clear to me early on in training at what heart rate and heat can I take on nutrition and hydration. And I
Mhm.
knew you have to know your body and when you can, if your heart rate's too high or you're too hot and you're not able to take on those electrolytes and just slushing around whatever, you're not absorbing it, you got to know what your body can do and at what time it can do it and how it's going to do.
Yeah.
And here's something we didn't talk about with radiative heat transfer. There was, I think the measured difference between wearing like black versus white was like a 25% difference in
Wow. It's a lot.
like wattage or something. So you can save 25% heat, I guess, absorbed
Yeah.
by going from wearing a white hat or not wearing a black kit.
Right.
Like as if you can get a lighter kit color that's not going to absorb that heat, that's less heat you have to dissipate. So, so if there's any strategy, if you can wear white or light colors and then run in the shade, if there's anywhere on the course and you see shade, get in the shade.
Going back to that, the color of your kit. I don't know. You guys watched the Olympic triathlon in Tokyo, the men's race. Christian Blumenfeld.
Oh, his kit is
His
all
kit
white.
was horrible.
It's
right? It
horrible, but
looked
it's all white
terrible.
and it's just
They
like
made
black
fun of him.
underpants.
Right.
Yeah.
It had like
You
a
need
black
that.
Speedo sewed into
saw
it
that.
so
Yeah.
that he
He looks
had
like
some
Captain.
They
He,
didn't have to blur it.
he looks
Right.
like Captain Underpants because it's all white and it's just like black there.
But they went in, they did a ton of research on, they knew it was going to be hot. They
Yeah.
knew it was going to be humid. They did their homework on knowing like what fabric is going to reflect the most amount of sunlight so that he's going to be able to stay that little bit cooler and have something left at the end. And it, was that the difference? I don't know, but
Koichi was telling me this weekend that they did a study where they had people carry black boxes and white boxes in the heat, and the people carrying white boxes perceived them to be lighter and not as hot and could carry them longer or something like that.
Uh-huh.
We're going to have to come back to him
Sounds
on that.
very racist.
But it had something to do with like,
yeah.
This was a hot
heat.
weekend.
yeah.
But yeah, I think there's no like silver bullet,
Right.
but you take all these little marginal gains and they
Mhm.
add up into something big.
Because ultimately, like all the things we've talked about are like good practice, right? General accepted good practices to do. The margin for error when it's hot is so much smaller than when it's temperate. Like you cannot screw up when it's hot or else it will bite you in the ass. And
Don't go out there when it's hot thinking you're going to be able to do the same thing you do when it's 10 degrees
Also,
cooler.
yeah.
Yeah. That
Just don't do it.
Scandinavian study, they were never able to get to 100% of what they were able to do in their cool weather.
right.
So you'll never get there. There's always going to be impairment, but you can improve. So yeah, what Rich said, don't expect to be able to hit your fastest pace when it's hot out. You have to
Yeah.
let go of that, realize you're going to be slower.
The mental part is really hard.
Right. All right. Any other finishing thoughts, folks?
That was a lot.
That was a
Yeah.
lot.
Tell us what you think.
But
Send us some
so
questions.
informative, I think.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of good
That's
stuff in
good.
here. A lot of things I'm going to take into part of my training.
Slushy.
Slushies.
Slushy.
Yep. I'm going to have a 7-Eleven Slurpee
If I
every
see
day.
you guys making those slurpees.
I mean, if we had,
No,
we
you're
just-
going to see us at 7-Eleven filling up big gulps.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could attach a little hand strap to
Oh.
this cup and like,
How-
you ever see
no.
those water bottles with a hand
Yeah, no, I have. But how great would like 7-Eleven stops be if you just poured that Coke
7-Eleven is an
slushy
untapped market.
into your water
Right.
bottle?
Coke slushy
With
is so good.
little electrolytes.
Yeah.
I don't even need that. Like,
Yeah,
you
Coke
get the little
slushy.
salt packet.
We should experiment though. We should buy a slushie, put it inside a cooler, leave it outside, and see how
long
like
it lasts.
check in on it and see
Yeah.
how long it lasts.
You do need it to be icy. You need like it can't just be cold. It needs to have ice in
It needs to
for the
melt
benefit.
inside. Yeah.
you
need to be melting inside of you.
Yeah.
That's the key piece.
And it's got to be portable. I'm not going to stand in transition.
7-Eleven is
With
missing out on a
slushy.
market. We got to tap into
But you
it.
know what? I
happen?
bet you like
7-Eleven, if you want to sponsor
Yeah.
the PV Try,
Yeah.
I'm
we'll
telling
have
you
Slurpee
though,
machines on every corner.
Slurpees. Oh,
I'm telling you, if this slushy cup, like let's say we figure out a way you have 100% slushy ready at T2,
Yeah.
and people start seeing you with this,
Mhm.
and you're like at the front of the pack, it will go
That's the key, though.
viral.
I'm never
and
at the front of
and
the
you're
pack.
milking a cow while you're
Yeah, I'm gonna have two. I'm gonna be double pumping, right? If people see you like just killing it on a run in a hot race,
Yeah.
you stick like a Roca sticker on that.
Yeah. You
A
can
slushy
charge
cup?
as much as you want.
People
it
are
for it.
gonna
You're
buy this
printing
thing
money,
like crazy.
printing money at that
Yeah.
point.
Like everybody will have a slushy cup.
that's what they have in the XC.
That's it.
They get slushies.
They got slushies.
Slurpees. All right.
I'm telling you,
That was good.
we may
folks.
be at the bleeding edge of this.
Yeah. You heard it here
You're
first.
onto something for sure.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Team Next Level Quad Pod. If you have, share in the comments, leave something or whatever.
We have to learn how to turn on the comments, I think.
I don't know what to do. I don't know. Whatever. Email James with your favorite way of cooling yourself.
James@nlphysio.com.
There we
Just
go.
blow up my inbox. I don't care.
All right, folks. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye. Thanks, everyone, for listening to the Next Level Quad Pod. We really appreciate you spending time with us and listening to everything that we have to offer. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review and a rating. Those little things go a long way towards us being able to bring you more content like this. If you'd like to learn more about what we have to offer, please go to our website at goteamnltry.com. There, you can find out about all the different things we provide that can help you reach your athletic potential. Thank you again for finding time in your busy schedule to spend some time with the Quad Pod.